Video today and this podcast, I want to talk to you about how consumers react to cash discounting, how consumers react to cash discounting or surcharging or whatever you want to call it. So the only reason that every business in America is not currently doing cash discounting is because they're terrified that they're going to turn away their customers, right? So if you think about it from their perspective, it's like, yeah, they could maybe, wipe out that $500 a month in fees and they're, on that 20,000 volume or whatever. But if they wipe out the $500 in fees, but they lose, 20% of their business, well, then it doesn't make sense anymore, does it? Because they lost so much business from it, and everything. So there's this idea that when a consumer walks into the business, they see this cash discount or this surcharge sign and they say, oh, no, never mind. I'm going to go ahead and go over to Pizza Hut or I'm going to go to another business. So that was my thought all along. That's been my biggest concern, to be totally honest. Like, I haven't sold cash discounting because I didn't want to hurt my business owners. So for a long time, I didn't sell it. So I've done a lot of research. I have seen two conclusive studies, and only two, that I really believe are objective. I believe they were good studies. It was done on enough merchants that I think it was statistically accurate. There's a couple things I'll talk about that are still a little bit of a concern to me, but in these two studies, they took a big group of merchants that did cash discounting. And what they found is that the month that they didn't do cash discounting, so like a normal month of processing, they looked at their volume, okay? Then they looked at their volume the next month, meaning the first month that they did the cash discounting, because arguably that's the month where they would have the biggest, impact, right? Because once you do it for a month, everybody kind of knows you do it, or most of your like loyal customers, and then you would think that at that point either they're going to leave or whatever. Like that first month when you do cash discounting should be pretty, you should see the impact of it right there. So what they found is that there was no measurable difference. In fact, on one of them it actually went up a little bit. On one study I saw it went up just 0.01% or something. But basically there's just no difference in the processing volume. Okay, now that tells a couple of different things that are actually really interesting. So number one, cash discounting does not seem to affect consumer behavior by them instead using cash. So ironically, it seems like, what I would think is that, your credit card processing volume would go down, but then your cash, revenue would go up. But that doesn't seem to be the case at all. It seems like people are just like, oh, there's a cash discount, okay? So for whatever reason, consumers don't seem to be bothered by this, or if they are bothered, it doesn't change their behavior, which is the important thing, right? Then the other thing that was interesting was, this is even a more interesting study in my opinion. They actually called all these business owners, and they called all of these the employees that are taking the payments and things like that, and they asked them all this question about how often do customers complain or bring up, because that's really what they're concerned with. And in the study, they found that 99.2% of the time it is not an issue at the point of sale. And that was in the very first month after they started doing cash discounting. So consumers have spoken, in my opinion, on this cash discounting thing, and they basically said, yeah, we don't care about it. So apparently, consumers don't really care that much about the cash discount. Again, I think because it's a cash discount. Now, surcharging is a little different. Some of the studies on that were a little bit more mixed. And so the irony is that all this time I've been kind of frustrated with cash discounting because I've been thinking to myself, like, why are we trying to trick, it's so confusing, like a cash discount versus a surcharge. Like, to me, it just makes a lot more sense to say, if you want to use your card, it costs more money. But what's funny, and what I didn't really think about, is until this last week and all this research I've done, I really didn't think about the psychological impact on the consumer. When I go to the car lot, I'm not upset at them that they offer a cash discount. I'm really not. I'm like, that makes sense. If I got, a loan or whatever, they have to pay fees on it, and you're going to offer me a discount to pay cash? Okay, that makes sense. I get that, and I'm really not upset by it at all. And so it's really kind of interesting. But if I went to the car lot and they said, well, we'll sell this car to you for $10,500, but if you're going to get a loan or whatever, then it's going to be $11,500. I probably would be kind of ticked by that, even though it's the same thing. And so it's kind of funny when you think about this, if you step back into the psychology of the consumer, you usually don't care about a cash discount. And so apparently consumers don't care about this. So it turns out that the surcharge or whatever versus the cash discount, it actually turns out that consumers seem to be enjoying the cash discount more than the surcharge. Even though, because I mean, for one thing, I think it is less confusing because it's not like on, well, it's only this card type. If you use this card type, it's okay or whatever. But the cash discounting is, it's the same across the board. It makes sense. They're like, okay, I get a 3% discount if I pay with cash. So it seems to actually be working pretty good. So this is a really short video podcast episode because I just want to make sure you know that there's been studies done. Consumers don't really seem to care. Now, let me give you two quick caveats to that. Number one, the business types that were in this study are probably skewed a little bit towards ones that are good for cash discounting. In other words, as of right now, sales reps and stuff, they haven't really been going hardcore after restaurants and retail businesses as much. You know, they've been going after retail a little bit, but not as much on like food services, restaurants and stuff. So there may still be, you know, a little bit of an impact there. We'd have to wait and kind of see what's going to happen with that. I think that study was skewed a little bit more towards, you know, auto repair and things like that, and we'll talk about that. The other thing is you really want to make sure that the processor you use is going to provide you with some marketing materials that displays information like that, because that is honestly the only objection. And that's the thing I love about cash discounting, is that there is literally only one objection. That's it. There is no other objection. The only objection is my customers are going to hate it and they're not going to shop here anymore. There's no other objection. What are they going to say? Well, I like who I'm with now and I don't mind paying $400 a month more. They're going to say that. There's no objection. There's only one. They're worried about their customers. So if you can overcome that one objection, you're golden.